I know what you're thinking. I want to change my life so desperately. I want to change my life because of everything I believe for my life. I want to change my life because, frankly, I am tired of my life. I have been there. I can relate, and I certainly have been through that experience. And so, before we get into what this video will drive you towards, which is how the structure of this specific morning routine I adopted changed my life, let's leverage the power of the words for what it truly means. Because words clearly are used to describe an emotion. An emotion is what we are feeling. And the reality that you could formulate in your mind and come out of your mouth with the vibration, frequency, and sound of, I want to change my life. The words are one thing, the feeling behind it, never lose it, never let it elude you, and never forget it. Because without it, the words mean nothing and will fall flat. And in my experience, a lot of what stops us is the start. We can bring the words to fruition, but the action is awfully difficult. So if you want to change your life, let's talk about how I adopted a morning routine that changed everything about my life. Let's also agree that when I say change my life, the reason why I learned to adopt this routine was all about finding love for myself, finding prioritization for myself, finding who I am to the maximum frequency allowed of my essence, my image, and the ability that God has given me. And so with that, I certainly encourage you to understand why you want to change your life and have some principles and core values and structure around the meaning for it. So we got the feeling we don't want to lose. Why? Because we no longer want to be where we're at. And so if we know we no longer want to be where we're at, then the easy thing is to contrast with where do we want to be? If I know I'm here and I no longer want to be here, I want to be here. Well, how do I get there and why? And so with that, I'll again begin with the reality around the improvement of self and the ability to maximize and have a structure around a morning that is going to change your life begins early. So for me, I have been over 1,000 days, 3+ years of 4 a.m. wake ups. So let's start there. Why do you wake up at 4? It's different than when you used to wake up. And the reality to the difference between waking up earlier and not is that you have just given yourself time. Time creates freedom. It creates peace. It creates an ability to think and process and flow. Whereas when you don't wake up with enough time, you're conflicted. There's friction. You're pressed up against compressed time. The difference between the two, starting your day much earlier and starting your day with just enough time, is that simple emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. The idea that I know I have time versus the idea I don't have very much time. Very different. So what can you do to be most prudent with your mornings? I have learned, and I've been through multiple iterations, I would say it took about 100 days for me to settle on what the last 1,000+ days have been like. You might find some literature, some content that tells you to jump into an immediate shower, a cold shower that tells you to hydrate immediately. I learned that I don't necessarily like to deal with the friction of cold right away. And so what I learned is I pray and I meditate immediately upon rising. And the reason I pray and meditate is because it allows me a balance. It allows me to become centered. It allows me quiet time. And the reason why that's important is because I want to remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing, what I'm looking to do, and reinforce that this is a change. And in order for me to change, guess what I need? I need to know how I feel. And the only way for me to know how I feel is to go absolutely dark, go absolutely quiet, and take my vision from an external to an internal view to understand what's going on inside of me. What am I feeling? How am I feeling it? Why might I be feeling it? Which also then translates into, what am I thinking? Why am I thinking this? What could have occurred that has me in this state? And the reality to what this amounts to is this. They're just thoughts. They're just feelings. I need to settle into that emotionally and understand this is where I'm at today. And regardless of how I feel, this is that cliche mantra around, doesn't matter how I feel. You have to accept the fact that it doesn't matter how you feel. In order to accept the fact that it doesn't matter how you feel, you got to sit down with yourself and go through the feelings regardless of how you're feeling. Because ultimately what you're going to do is prove to yourself over and over that whether I'm high today because I'm hyped or I'm low today because I had a bad day and I feel a little bit depressed the night before, I'm going to do it. What this also does for me is I align myself spiritually with Creator. So I'm meditating and praying. In my view, the way I understand and do things, thought, which comes from emotion, that is direct conversation with Creator, Maker, God, and Spirit. It is how the universe observes where you're at, the energy you're emitting, and how it responds to you. So imagine if I'm looking for change, I start my day immediately by tapping into myself, showing up for myself, being present and still, and understanding what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. And I say hello to God. Great way to start the day. Then after I'm done with that, I hydrate. At least 4 cups of water. I like room temperature water. Either way, point is to hydrate. I also have a shot of caffeine, which for me is a pre-workout. You might watch some videos that tell you don't do that. I'm telling you what I've learned off my experience and why I do it and the change it does. The reason why I go into a pre-workout is because from there, it tells you it kicks in about 30 minutes. Well, now I know I have 30 minutes to start working on myself. And mentally, I say, well, if I took this pre-workout, this is sort of a habit building and habit stacking structure. I consider all this like a superstructure. To say, I know I just had this, that means I'm going to work out at some point. So boom. If you can follow what we're doing here, we're focusing on our thoughts, our emotions, driving intention, and moving towards a focused state. Once I hydrate and I have my pre-workout, I like to read. I'm very specific about what I read. I read self-help books, self-help. I read philosophy books. I read books about life. Why? Because that's where my mind is at. That's where my mindset is. It aligns with how I start the day. It aligns with who I want to be and who I want to become because I said I want to change my life. So I go from a very still, spiritual, emotional balance into some nurturing of wisdom through literature and other people who have been through what I went through to reinforce we're learning, we're growing, we're grinding. And now I have an hour where I've done nothing but balance, center, learn, and reinforce. And at that point, my pre-workout is kicked in. It's usually about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I have adopted, and I believe deeply, in a cardio session. I think your cardio session should be a light jog or a walk. Not so much. I tried high intensity before, and often I might even jump rope. But one of the things I'm doing is I'm keeping a theme here. I went from spirituality to wisdom. Now I usually want to get out into nature. There's not always sunlight, but I do get out. And when I get out, this is almost like a continued flow and meditative state. When you go for a light jog, not only is it healthy for your heart and good for your heart, you want to take care of your body. You might as well, you're up this early. But now you're sort of getting into the flow and the rhythm and the patterns of nature. One of the points of emphasis I have here, at no point do I put on headphones. At no point do I distract myself with music or any other sound of any other voice. It is me with me at all times. And when I run, it's another flow and meditative state to sort of balance myself now with the other creation of the world. the rest of the creation that's around me, the rest of God and all and the essence of being, it's great to roll into nature. Get some nature, get some air, breathe in a little deep, get your heart rate up, go up a couple of hills, down a couple of hills, run where it's dark, run where it's light, run from dark to light, light to dark. All these things are very soothing, very relaxing, very healthy for how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your life. Because we said again, we want to change our life. This, without a doubt, is life-changing. From there, I get back. I'm still working on myself. I get into a 10-minute stretch. It's usually about 5:30, 5:35 when I get back. I can stretch for 10 minutes. Once again, I'm connecting with my body. I'm connecting with my spirit. I'm connecting with my mind. I'm focused and prioritized on making myself better. From that point, I get into strength training. You can lift weights. You can do bands. You can do whatever it is that implies lifting heavy things and moving, as my wife would say. You're just down there moving heavy stuff around. Yep. Whatever that is for you, you want to put some strain and some pain and some pressure physically on your body. You've got your mind settled. You've got some wisdom. You've got some spirit. You've got some nature. Then you let go of that physical brute animal that's inside of you that wants to be nurtured, caressed, and shown a little bit of light. And at this point, with the physical having been tackled, if you would, addressed and focused on, you have now suddenly, and you can do this for about 45 minutes, you're now suddenly in about, or an hour, in the 6:30, 6:45 time frame, and let's just call it 6:30. For 2.5 hours, with the full intention to change your life, you've worked on your mind, you've worked on your body, you've worked on your spirit. And what does this produce for you that is life-changing? Faith. You believe in yourself a little bit more. How crazy. I woke up when I said I would. I did what I said I would, where I said I would. Now I have faith that I can continue to do this. Now you have more confidence because you're accomplishing things over and over and over. This, of course, doesn't stop Sunday, because that's when I start my week, through Saturday. It is a compound effect, which means what? Oh, wow. Now you're consistent. Now you're disciplined. Now you have higher worth and work ethic. Now you're all of a sudden feel completed and accomplished. And all that's required to feel this way and change your life in this way is you. You need no other distractions. You need no other support. You need no other people. You need no other relationships. You simply need to reinvent how you go about doing you, which will reinvigorate, re-inspire, and absolutely put you on a new level of self-love. And if I can't afford you any better life-changing experience than to work on yourself in order to take care of yourself, which implies then that you are loving on yourself a whole lot more over and over and over again, I don't know what else to sell you. You said, I want to change my life. It is up to you to decide to change your life. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.